Yo, good morning, guys. Good morning. Dinas. Uh, All right, we'll get started here in a minute. I think TSDR is going to be a couple minutes or so late this morning, dealing with the kiddos. Big old gap up in China land this morning, huh? Holy shit. Uh-oh. Chat guy pump, Yeti. Chat guy pump. All right, how many we got in here? I guess we can get started. Mhm. Mhm. All right, let's get started. Let's take a look at the cues today. Um, we didn't have to really pay much attention to the indexes, say the last couple of days. Um, Kind of just resting below this like 486 pivot and above these moving averages. Um, But I like to think that today's sort of the decision day, kind of what I'm looking at on the higher and lower time frames. Look like we're gonna get some expansion today. So we've had three really, really tight closes. I mean, the last 3 days have all closed within like the same like dollar range, right around like the 483s, 484s. Um, and so I can see, here's what I'm looking at. If we look at the 65 minute on the cues, actually, let's pull it up on this chart over here so we can see it a little bit better. So this 65 minutes getting tight below this 485, which is like kind of the spot to clear to get out of this base down here. And, we're building out a decent pattern. You got higher lows, you got higher highs. We're supporting at the 65 minute 20 EMA pretty much the whole way up from these lows down here. We could be building out a little VCP structure. I mean, you got really tight price action, really low volume the last couple days. I think SPY traded like one of the lowest volume days of the year, and we're in September. So if we can come out and take out this previous high, I think that'd be a very, very positive sign. Now, the one thing I'm a little concerned about that, is potentially a possibility here into the end of the week is, if we end up just wedging up into this 485 and break down through this little channel, this could end up being just like a pop and rejection into this previous high and then just kind of wedge up. And if we put in a lower high and come back down through some like the previous day's lows, like 482, 480, that might be a little cause for some short-term concern. But for now, this is supporting well. And I think, really the key here is to just take out this high from Thursday last week, from that post FOMC day. So I think that's going to be the key spot to take out. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm watching. I just really don't want this to turn into some like wedging action into a lower high, which is kind of how a lot of breakdowns have started on the cues this year. And just, kind of what the price action felt like the last few days. So been very like unenthusiastic. We're just kind of like grinding into this previous high. So we'll see if, we have the strength to take that out. And, given that we've had a couple really tight days, we could be set up for some nice range expansion. But, really watching Thursday's high as a big tell and how we test against that spot. And hopefully that's today. We got Micron earnings tomorrow. So maybe that'll shake some up in the semis. But yeah, this previous high from Thursday last week is really what I got my eyes on. Take a look at the weekly chart. This is clearly the spot on the weekly that to kind of trigger us out of this little correction base. So last week's high is going to be big. Now I can see this, going sideways on the weekly even a little bit longer below this level. So, if we end up breaking down and we end up wedging up into that spot, could get some more consolidation, get these moving averages tight. But I really hope we're set up for some range expansion today. That'd be sweet. I mean, we've had a couple tight days that have been kind of awful to sit through. Same thing with SPY. Is this, kind of wedging up, right? And we end up putting in a lower high. Kind of if we take a look at the Qs back here, this was some wider price action, but like where, we end up failing at the high and then, kind of wedging up like this little wedge pattern, like really tight closes and tight ranges, and then we end up breaking down. Don't want that to be the case here. So that's what I'm watching on the Qs. TCR, what's up?
Hey.
So as far as, what's kind of hot in the pre-market this morning, I'm sure everyone's seen the big China gap today. All these names are my top gainers this morning. Billy up 10%, Lee up 9%, JD up 8.5%, TME, Neo, I mean, all of them. So, as far as the Chinas go, they're really hot. Everyone's talking about them this morning. They're a little too far gone for the short term to like play today, in my opinion. Maybe if you're a scalping McGee day trader, you can mess around with these. But as far as like a swing trade perspective, the entries were back here on these. And if you were focused on this sector, good for you. You're pretty happy this morning, but I did not get involved. This is a really nice move. I mean, breaking some really big weekly bases on some of these. So, maybe a new theme emerging here. If this, this FXI is, starting to come out of a big base and we end up making a higher high and get through this $30 level, this could be a theme that we could track for the, next weeks or months. But as of now, honestly, with some of these names being up like 7-8 days in a row, and with the headline this morning, everybody talking about it, could be like the climax move today for this move. Wouldn't surprise me. But I'm not going to get involved with these today, but definitely a basket to keep eyes on. Some of these got some higher ADRs you can mess around with intraday. I think Neo's not too far gone. I know ManRav got you guys in this yesterday. Pretty sick entry on this yesterday, but this thing had a really nice setup. Was hoping for a flattish open today. This was going to be kind of a top of the list setup, but this is gapping up out of the range, which, if these Chinas hold up, this could catch some heat for some day trade action. So this is like one I would watch in this basket today. And then, the other theme we've been tracking is like the uranium and nuclear names. I think some of those are a little far gone too in the short term. But so, like, it's nice to see the follow through days, whether you're involved or not, because that just, means the theme's catching some traction and it's got some early strength. So these will be kind of on the pullback buy list on, those two themes right now for me. But as far as what I got on my watch list today, we can start with, so I really like this Uber. This is up 2% today. It was opening up a little lower. I almost bought this retest of the 74 spot yesterday, but I held off and now it's, gapping up 2% away from me, but I think this is still playable. The weekly looks phenomenal. You get phenomenal weekly base up here, just resting above these previous all-time highs. Man, this has been sideways for like 6 months now. And this thing can really trend when it goes. It's a really, really nice mover. So this could be playable. I think if this gives like a pullback buy at the open today, I'd be willing to get involved in this. The ideal entry point was yesterday into the 9 EMA, but I think this is still on watch for me, especially if this gives one of the, the gap up, pull back to the 9 EMA, you get some rounding action. I'd play this and look to risk like a low a day stop on this. If this is, taking out this base, and we've seen a lot of these names kind of break out of these patterns and, give a little quick retest that, at first looks like maybe a failed breakout, but it ends up holding and then they pick up steam after that. So, reason why I kind of got that on my list. UPSD still on my list, had a little bit, more of an aggressive down day I would have liked yesterday, but still nothing crazy given the range that this thing has. I'm watching this 920 MA in this 3820 area. Pull up a 65 minute. You can kind of, see this level that I'm watching right here that we retested yesterday at the lows. If this ends up getting like an ORB today, might give this a shot. Would love a couple more days, but this thing could really go quick. So keep an eye on that UPST today. Pan W, I wanted in this yesterday. I think yesterday was the buy on this. Technically, like a little bit of a wedge pop. You got kind of getting through this upper trend line. I'm gonna keep an eye on this. I'll probably end up taking it off. I don't know. I just feel like the best entry for me on something like this would have been yesterday. But this weekly chart on this still looks really, really nice. I think through 350 is really going to trigger this pattern to the upside on the weekly chart. But kind of just watching this, pivot right now, which we're kind of sitting at right now in the pre-market. So keeping an eye on this. Man, this BNTX is cruising. So I had this on the list early this morning. This thing had a really big move on some big volume, pulling back to the 90 MA. And it kind of did like a little undercut and rally at this little pivot here at the 90 MA, which is nice. Like these setups have been working. And this was probably a pullback buy yesterday. It was a little steep, but they got an upgrade this morning, gapping up 4.5%. This could be playable, maybe a little far gone on the gap up for me, especially if this just gap and goes. I don't know if I can take this. I'll have to, think on it. But, this kind of reminded me, didn't give as many days, but maybe of like a Redfin where this made a move and pulled back and then, got that secondary move. So it could be something like that. It had some big volume and made a really nice move. So I threw it back on the list. This serve, so Connor was mentioning about this morning. This is interesting. So this thing's kind of, staging potentially a little undercut and rally at this high volume close from back on this EP day back here. This is building out a little, to me, looks like a wedge pop pattern. Looks like this was the reversal extension down here. We popped into the MAs. And now we're building out a nice pattern below the MAs. And if this ends up popping through like 830, 840, I think you can get a quick move to like $10 on this right at this previous base spot here. And that's like a, 25% move. So this thing can really move. Volume's dried up a lot. And I'll be watching this through the 20 MA today. I think this could be a nice setup. These undercut and rallies have been working. So I want to keep this on the list. I had this TIL on the list. I think I want a couple more days on this, but I'm going to watch this today, potentially like a 5-star high type flag setup. This thing had like an enormous move on huge volume, went 500% in like 6 days. And now it's building out a really, really tight range. 90 MA is catching up. I would love another pullback and undercut of the 90 MA and get even tighter below this trend line. Just to make it like 5-star because it has made a massive move and the weekly is a little bit extended. But if this gets through 70 again, I imagine, you don't know how long some things like these can go. So it came out of a, 2-year base and just traded massive volume. So I think this is worth keeping an eye on. And then I still got this BLND on the list. I don't know if it's going to trigger today, but, TSDR, we were talking about, what do we want to see on this? Pop into $4 and get tight below that spot. So I'll be watching how this acts off the moving averages strictly because I still really like this weekly look. We took out this base and now we're, building out a nice pattern above. We retested. So if this ends up being an inside week and gets bought up, I think I want to get involved in this name. So that's kind of my list for today. I think I covered everything on here. As far as my positions go, Tesla's gapping up another $4, which is nice to see. I'll be watching the Qs pretty close today because I think we're going to potentially get a little bit of a decision today. And if it ends up, putting in that like lower high wedging structure, maybe, if we go green to red or take out yesterday's lows, I'll probably take some trims on this Tesla. Just, if there's some broad market weakness and the indexes start pulling lower, I imagine this gap is going to probably fade today. We're right up into the spot where this thing broke down. And near the end of July. So, this is probably a spot I'd want to take profits on if the market starts to get weak. But, if the Qs end up taking out this range and, we get the market to keep pushing, I don't think I have any reason to sell that, any of this just yet. So if we can leave a second unfilled gap today and close strong, I mean, that'd be huge for this thing, especially if the indexes, start taking out this base. So, now I got this BidX. I don't really need to talk about this. This is, I need a couple more days on this to kind of, decide what I want to do. But I got this NVDL too. This is going to make its decision any day now, this NVIDIA. Maybe you get a really tight day into MU's earnings tomorrow, but I don't know. I can't imagine this getting any tighter, especially with how the Qs and SMH are looking. So, I'll do a quick cut on this below yesterday's low is kind of my stop. We had that little sweeping candle yesterday. The 9 and 20 and 50 are so overlapped, you can't even see any of them. They look like one moving average. So that has not happened on this thing in like as long as I can remember. So this thing's extremely tight. We'll see which way it decides. I know there's a lot of eyes on this. So in the profit on that right now, probably looking at like a maybe 1.5-2% loss on NVDL if this breaks previous day's low. But that's my stop on this. And through yesterday's highs, might consider adding more depending on how the Qs and SMH look. If they, look positive and this takes out previous day's highs, I'll probably add the rest of my position. And then I got Lunar and Rocket Lab, but those are some runner positions that need a couple more days probably to set up their next move. So TSDR, you here? Just gonna see if he had anything this morning, but that's what I got. You guys watch anything in the chat? I didn't have on my radar. Please share. CRM gapping up, upgraded to overweight at Piper, 325 price target.
Piper, barely know her. Sorry.
You got anything this morning, boss?
What?
You got anything this morning?
Yeah, so my mother just got here to watch the children. We don't have our daycare lady. That is why I was running back and forth. Dun, dun, dun. Let me share my screen. Perfect. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry, I didn't send out a link. Okay. Yeah, I sent out that video yesterday. You obviously went over the China stuff. TSM's up a decent bit, 2.5%. Kind of carrying the SMH a little bit. I still think we keep our eyes on NVIDIA and the semiconductors. Specifically, these four, TSM, NVIDIA, Dell, and AMD, are the ones that I'm kind of focused on. Ideally, we'd see, like, if this AMD, for example, like you guys know that, I love the setups where we kind of sweep underneath this range, give another tap, including the 9 EMA, and then get rocking up into that resistance and big level. Live, I meant. Which is what I want to see, to where you get that big sweeping candle. Like yesterday really was the kind of candle on NVIDIA here, where you kind of undercut the previous day, reclaim, and then the next day you get that, red to green push, break over previous day high. So right now NVIDIA is set up the best to do that. Even Dell as well. I'd want to see this one kind of undercut. So I'm really gonna be watching those. There's a few things that look like, depending on where they end up actually opening in 8 minutes, that could be setting up like some baby like kicker type candles. I guess Square had an inside day yesterday, and we're set to open up in the wick of yesterday's action, to where if we break pre-market high and this previous day's high, I do like this. This is still in range, but we've seen some of these, mostly just PayPal, right? We've seen PayPal start to pop out of this base that it's been in since mid 2023 and start to kind of trend up a little bit. So looking at that Square, you went over UPST. Be careful if you didn't get any of these Chinas. I just want to reiterate, be careful. The only one that looks like it might be enterable is Neo, but Manref sent out an alert yesterday. So if you're gonna buy this today up 8%,
Exactly what I said.
yeah, like if you're gonna buy this today up 8%, the question is, you shouldn't be asking yourself, how can I get in this today? You should be asking yourself, why didn't I take this yesterday? Should be what you're asking yourself. Anyways, so those two I'm looking at. And then one other part that is gapping up quite a bit, I want to bring up this copper. This is SCCO, Southern Copper. So this is up almost 6% in the pre-market. FCX, everyone knows, is up almost 7% in the pre-market. He's kind of had these really nice like W patterns down here. FCX specifically with this double bottom at $40. And we're kind of gapping over this neckline area. is a pretty notable move. We are gapping up right again right into resistance. So yeah, I don't think we force anything on these today on this massive gap up. But this is something that, again, a theme that we're going to have to watch, develop over, likely into the end of the year and the early part of next year. Um, a few days sideways or even a few weeks of consolidation after this decides to, whether it keeps running for, more days or whether it, builds out here. This is going to give a really nice setup with all these moving averages starting to catch up and getting nice and tight again. That's FCX and SCCO.
Check out this, maybe not the most liquid one, but check out this pattern on ERO.
ERO. Oh yeah, that's super nice. That's super nice. What's the Canadian one that I show? HBM. This one's nice too. They all got, fairly similar looks except for that ERO is more but still same thing like this double bottom and then this neckline. This is more at a serious breakout spot. That was pretty hot. That's super hot. So yeah, like I said, don't necessarily write it off just because it's not super tradable today. And there was a conversation going on in the chat about maintaining focus on your watch list when these weekly charts are setting up, just because the daily might shake you out a little bit, is to, keep that, practice going of, okay, these are the stocks that are moving really well. These are stocks that are breaking out on the weekly time frames and likely setting up for multi-month moves to keep watching on. So, I think these could, be developing into some of those. So, yeah, keep your eyes on some of those. But I do like this square. Starbucks got a downgrade today. Again, this isn't one of those like American companies that trades with a lot of these China ones. If you guys remember, Starbucks moves on their earnings based on their China numbers. Very similar with Apple and Tesla. This did get a downgrade this morning, but it's actually recovered a decent bit of that move since and is opening up, essentially flat right here. I like the hold of the 20 EMA yesterday. I'm going to keep this one on watch. I would really rather not trade it with the big old downgrade, but man, if this ends up going green with this China news in the face of that downgrade, could be something to play. Again, I sent out that video, last night, knowing that I was going to be a little bit late this morning with my mother watching the kids at home, daycare. So hopefully that covered some things. Yeah, market opens in a few minutes. Dun, 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 dun. Win, yeah, it's another one on that China list. Yep, some of these uranium stocks are still gapping up. I guess LEU's up almost 5%. Yep. Just going to the chat. LAAC, that's the spinoff of LAC, Lithium Americas. That's the Argentinian form of it. In fact, lithium has actually had a little bit, this chart still looks like garbage. Lithium has had a little bit of move. SLI has been up a bunch. PLL, actually, never mind, not as much. ALB has been kind of forming the early stages of a bottoming pattern. Someone in the chat just asked about lithium. SQM as well. So like, again, I think these are some of these commodities are, possibly being underlooked as a really good play for the China stimulus news. There are some, like I said, copper and lithium names that look decent. Oxy still looks like booty cheeks. Yeah, no interest in that. Unless you're just trying to buy the dip with Warren G. But
Papa Warren. All right, we got 30 seconds till open.
yeah, I'd rather see something like this on the oil stocks versus Oxy, which is maintaining this will undercut of this base and recovery, but I'm never interested in trading low.
I would just go with XOM. It's the strongest. Look at the weekly.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, this week it looks fire.